So with the introductions of server components and server actions, there's very little reasons to use data fetching libraries anymore. So libraries like Query, SWR, or TRPC, you don't need them for the most part, but there are a few cases where if you need to load data after the initial page load, then you would need to use the data fetching libraries. So if you wanted to do an infinite scroll feature or a polling feature, then you would need to use something like React Query, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. Alright, now let's take a look at our app. Here I just have a very basic infinite scroll feature. So as you can see, it's infinite scrolling, and I also want you to pay attention to when I refresh. So it takes a moment for the data to show up, so that means it's all client side for now, and I'm going to eventually show you how to do this. Fetch your initial data on the server and then hydrate on the client. So this should get rid of the problem where you're waiting a bit for the data to appear. So here we have a server component, and inside that server component we have a client component that's called infinite list, and here is where we're going to be implementing our infinite scroll feature. All we have to do is use the use infinite query hook provided to us by TanStack Query, and that's going to make it a lot easier than trying to implementing it from scratch. So you look at the docs for use infinite query, all you have to do is for the query function, destructure the page param and then pass that into a fetch function that is probably just hitting an API endpoint, and all we have to do is replace this fetch page function with our server action. So here that's what we're doing. We destructured the page param and then passing that on to our server action. This is a server action, and here basically I'm just mocking a database access. I pass in cursor and I return the next 10 numbers, and for use infinite query hook to work you also need to return a next cursor, and next cursor is just cursor plus 10 plus 1 in this case. But if you're using the use query hook instead, all you have to do is pass in the server action directly. What you need to understand is that the query function takes in any data fetching function, so it doesn't matter if it's a function that is hitting an API endpoint or a server action. And remember, you want to pass in a parameter, all you have to do is use the syntax instead. And if you haven't noticed, this is actually a polling feature. All you have to do is use a server action and then specify a refetch interval. Now let's take a look at our infinite scroll component. This is a component that I made. I have a package on npm if you want to use it. I'll leave the links in the description, but it's very easy. All you have to do is pass in a fetch next page, has next page, a loading message, and an ending message. And this is very easy to implement because fetch next page and has next page is given to us by TanStack Query. And this is the syntax that you would need to map your data. The data will contain pages, and those pages will then contain the data. And if you remember, we actually have this problem where it takes a while for the data to appear. And that's because we're completely fetching the data client side. So what we need to do is fetch data initially on the server and then hydrate it on the client. And this is where I learned the information if you want to check it out. So this is the syntax that we would need to use first: create a query client and then use that query client to prefetch the data. Here we need to use prefetch infinite query because we're hydrating an infinite query hook. As you can see, I'm just passing in get next 10 action, and we need to use the arrow syntax to pass in a parameter. And after that, all you have to do is wrap your component in a hydration boundary. Basically what this does is similar to use context. It will prevent you from needing to prop drill. So if you have a component that is deep in the tree, you don't have to keep passing the state down multiple component levels. So basically the use infinite query hook will get that information automatically, and you don't need to pass it down as a prop. And as you can see now, that problem no longer exists. When you refresh the page, the data is instantly there. You don't have to wait for it to arrive. That's because it's fetching initially on the server and then hydrating on the client. And if this was helpful to you, like and subscribe. I intend to make videos about React, Next.js, and tech in general.